Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you guys want to know why most entrepreneurs burn out and how to avoid it? Well, that's what this episode's all about. So let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, he's battled brutal lows, celebrated massive wins, and lived to tell the real story behind entrepreneurship. From breakdowns to breakthroughs, he's here to give his brutally honest opinion about what it really takes to make it. So please welcome to the show, the one and only Mr. Jose Berlanga. Now that we got the vibe right, we can get this thing started. Welcome to the show, Jose.
Hi, Hernan. How are you? Great to be here. That was a fun party you had going on there.
That's what I'm saying. It's a celebration because Jose is now on the podcast. So let's do this thing. Let me ask you your first question. You've talked about emotional roller coasters in entrepreneurship, and anybody who's been an entrepreneur knows it exists. Can you give me a little background on who you are, what you did, and and share maybe one of your lowest moments that you faced going through this entrepreneurial journey?
Yes, this has been my life. This is my expertise. This is what I've done for many, many years. Interestingly enough, you said we'll share some of the success, which means I've had massive failures, massive hiccups in the business world, and that's where I get most of my lessons. They've been painful throughout my career. I started as a young entrepreneur wanting to build a business, start a business, and understand. I was always fascinated by it, and I've never stopped. I'm one of those curious personalities that is always trying to do better. And from the time I can remember, I was one of those that would buy and sell things and trying to figure out how to turn a profit. So right now I'm several things. I find it hard to describe. I'm an entrepreneur. I am involved with several startups. I'm a developer, real estate developer, investor, and now I'm a writer. Now I'm doing some funner things. I'm adapting to the new era and reinventing myself. I found a new hobby, which is to write books, particularly about this business, about real estate, about entrepreneurship, about adversity, about the challenges that this lifestyle represents. Because entrepreneurship it's not a career. It's really a life choice that comes with good, bad, and the ugly.
And let me ask you about that ugly part, because let's be honest, most people fear failure, which is why they usually don't even start. They go through their head thinking about everything that could possibly go wrong. They suffer from paralysis of analysis, and they never take that next step. But you're saying that basically these fears could actually build confidence. How do you make that mindset shift so that people can maybe accept the failure, or maybe, I don't know if it's ever a good feeling, but understand how it can actually help them to move forward?
In my case, I have used the fear of building businesses and going on my own as fuel, as a motivation to really get somewhere and to try harder and to not take no for an answer and to not accept failure, even when it shows up. Failure is going to knock on your door regularly. I don't call it, we don't call it failure. Of course, we call it setbacks and obstacles. Failure only occurs if you quit, if you remove yourself from the business world altogether. But yes, the notion that going into business and believing that it's all going to happen the way you expected and the way you planned and designed your business, it's a fantasy. It rarely ever happens. And the more you're ready to understand that it's going to be a challenge, that it's going to be difficult, the better chances you will have to make progress in your business. The fear factor, I think all of us approach business differently. Some people have the fear of going on their own, taking risks, gambling, putting some money into a company, even borrowing money, or perhaps using their credit, getting in debt, and that's scary. Other people are actually very aggressive, very confident, and when they get in business, they think it's going to be easier because of that level of confidence. I think we as entrepreneurs need to meet somewhere in the middle where, yes, you have to have confidence, you have to have conviction, you have to have a vision, you have to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, but also understand that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. And the more you process those thoughts and the reality of what entrepreneurship represents, the more you have chances of sticking to it when things get extremely turbulent.
Yeah, they say that we make plans and then God laughs, right? Like we have a business plan that you might spend hours and hours and hours working on, and then you go to implement, you realize, oh, we're taking a left turn here, we're taking a right turn here, we fell off the cliff here, but we're getting back up over here. Like the plan is there to kind of guide you, but it's not necessarily always going to work that way. And I like what you talked about, where you can put money into something, you may lose some money, it is kind of scary. But at the end of the day, you're betting on yourself, right? Like you're taking an investment into you, into your time, into what you perceive as something in the future. I like to use the analogy of like a lottery ticket. So an entrepreneur has this business idea, and it's like the day you buy the lottery ticket. As soon as you buy it, you have all these visions of what life is going to be like and what you're going to buy and where you're going to live and what that's going to look like. And it doesn't always, rarely ever happens with the lottery ticket, but at least with an entrepreneurship, you can start building that to reach that goal that you want to achieve. It might not pan out exactly how you wanted to get there, but as long as you don't quit, like you said, you're not going to ever not make it there. It just might take you a little bit longer, maybe cost a little bit more. Maybe, you have to do a little bit more than you had to do, than you thought you were going to do. What are some common myths about entrepreneurship that you think are actually holding people back from taking that leap?
Well, obviously the fear of failure, the unknown. We all are normally very, very concerned about not knowing if something is going to work. And I think that's the number one. Not finding something that they're fully passionate about. Because a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of getting into a business because of the money, because of the opportunity, instead of getting into something that they really understand or appreciate or love doing, and finding a nice blend between something that you're good at and also that can be profitable and that can do something good for your clients, customers, society, so on and so forth. But you have to have a little bit of craziness, a little bit of that personality of being a dreamer, the fantasy, the hope, the faith that you can become something more than what you are. If you don't have that in you, that ambition, you can't teach someone to become ambitious or aggressive in the business world. Imagine devoting endless hours, thousands of hours, days, nights, weekends, compromising, walking away from fun and friends and everything to build something that you're not quite sure if it's ever going to pay off, if it's ever going to return your investment and that time that you invested in. And it often doesn't. It's painful. It's hard to process, hard to stomach when you've devoted so much of your effort and time to an activity and it didn't go as planned. So some entrepreneurs short term decide that this is not something for them and they move on. Some of them use it as a lesson and understand, and this may be a very, very popular statement and a cliche that every mistake, every error, every failure gets you closer. But it is a fact that there's a process, there's a formula to improve the way that you go about in building something. And by trying so many things that are not working, you're learning by default. You're improving your ability to deal not only with the learning curve of the business, but to develop the patience, the tolerance to these setbacks, and to the pain that it comes with the frustration of not necessarily moving as fast as you want in making daily progress in a business. And it's not linear. I mean, sometimes you build a business that it may literally take a few years before it actually starts coming together. And if you don't have faith in what you're doing, which not all of us have that particular strength or personality, it becomes unbearable.
But that faith is something that's a little unique in the entrepreneurial space, and the reason why I bring that up is because I think it was Zig Ziglar that says sales is really the transfer of energy. And when you're talking to somebody about your product or service, if you don't believe in your product or service, it comes out in your conversations. It comes out in your sales approach and your presentations. If you're not confident with it, it's very difficult for you to sell it. And of course, that's where your business tends to struggle. That confidence level to build, whether it's in a product or service that you have, whether it's the confidence that you have in selling that product or service, or maybe it's the confidence in you being able to say, hey, potential client, I'm going to get you XYZ, and then actually implementing XYZ. That is always, I think, that one of the biggest struggles that entrepreneurs have is believing in themselves to be able to actually turn around and sell their product or service. You've been a serial entrepreneur. How do you build that confidence in yourself to sell something, especially if you're at the beginning? Maybe you've never done it before. Maybe you've never, I know people fear the whole sales conversation, but how do you make it smooth so that you have the confidence to speak to a client with knowledge and persuasiveness to get them to become a client?
The question of all questions, nature or nurture, do you become a salesperson, a leader, or can you train for it? Can you educate yourself? I think it's a combination. You practice, you become better, but you have to have a little bit of that natural confidence that comes with it. First of all, a lot of what I've done in my career is sales related. As an entrepreneur, you have to know how to sell, how to motivate, how to inspire, how to get other people around you enthusiastic and passionate about your mission. You have to have an objective and a mission. And it's incredible how addictive and how infectious your positive attitude and your desire to reach goals can be on the rest of your team. Something that I always teach over the years, people that have worked with me, for me in sales teams, is number one, you have to like the product that you're selling. You have to understand it. You have to know it. You have to enjoy it. And when you have all those feelings about your business, about your company, about your product, your service, you tend to convey that message with a different level of passion, with a different level of infection in the joy and the happiness that people start feeling for what you're doing and how you're doing it. So you're normally not just selling the product itself. You're selling yourself. You're selling the trust, the personality, the confidence that you have in yourself, but the confidence that you give others about what service you're providing. So how do you obtain it? Sometimes, like I said, it's natural. Sometimes if you don't have enough practice, repetition. Learn your product, do your homework, and enjoy what you're selling and what you're doing, and do it over and over. Listen to yourself. Pay attention to some of the other people that are successful in your industry. This is something that I do a lot. I don't wait for mentors to teach me or train me or educate me. I listen to them. I pay attention to them. I see what they're doing and how they're doing it, and I try to duplicate it to the best of my ability. That's how I've learned the most.
Now, I've also heard this said over and over again that the entrepreneurial game is a very lonely game. When you start becoming more and more successful, you start to kind of your friend group changes, the people you're spending your time with changes. The problems that you have within your business tend to be your problems until maybe you either find the solution or get things going. And it's difficult for people to deal with failure. That's one part. Then it's difficult for people to deal with kind of that loneliness feeling of where the pressures of ownership start to like really weigh heavy on you when you have to make really critical decisions in the direction of your business, or always constantly putting out fires. Because as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, that's really at the end of the game what you're doing is you're constantly trying to solve the bigger problem that comes up. How do you stay grounded? How do you stay motivated when the pressure of that ownership starts to really weigh heavy on you?
That's a great question, because being an entrepreneur, and once you start establishing yourself and building a business, the weight on your shoulders, the level of responsibility that you feel is tremendous. The way that I evaluate this, or perhaps compare it to, I'll give you a couple of examples. Being a parent is a good one. It's perhaps one that a lot of people can relate to. You are always worried about your kids, whether they're with you, whether they're not with you. When you go to sleep, you wonder if they're sleeping well, if they ate well, where they are, how they are. In business ownership, very similar. While your employees, people that work for the business, go home and move on to their social life and to their other activities and hobbies, you take responsibilities, worries, cash flow, legalities, procedures, growth, numbers, your accounts, your lenders, your investors. You never stop. It drives you insane 24/7, forever, for the longevity of your career. And it's something that you learn to deal with, just like being a parent. And the way that I force myself to get better at it and to tolerate it more is by understanding that this is what I chose. Everyone wants to be the boss until it's time to deal with the activities that the boss has to deal with and resolve them. So you want to be the guy that makes more money. You want to be the guy who is the leader that grows, that gets the benefits of the business. Then you have to be the one responsible for the big tasks and deal with the problems when they show up. I like to throw myself in problems. When in my earlier years, in order to gain that confidence, I would try not to overthink transactions or businesses. Yes, I would plan them. I would have a plan of attack, but jump in and without taking too much time and deciding, sort of like throwing, going far enough in the ocean where it's just as difficult to continue your mission as it is to come back and abort the mission. So I've done that a lot in business, where I feel that fear. Should I get into this deal? Should I get into this new project? I jump in and I try to go in to a certain point where, it's just impossible to go back. You have to either complete it, finish it, and become more successful and more experienced, or deal with the consequences and at some point just figure out how to solve problems as they go. But this is something that you never fully remove from your mind. Your business is always going to be with you, and I think that's just the nature of this activity.
I like the concept I've heard of when you're in it, when the problems are big and they're weighing on your shoulders, to think of it as the training montage in like the Rocky movies. You know what I mean? Where right now you are here, you're not the prize fighter at the moment, but you're going through all the training, all these different problems, all these iterations of what you're doing, and you're going to come out at the end being able to tell this amazing story of your journey to get to where you got to. Like it's definitely a struggle. I have a mentor who always says, how long have you been in business? And you have a lot of people who say, I've been in business for 5 years. And he'll ask the question, he's like, have you been in business for 5 years, or have you been stuck repeating the same year of business over and over again for the last 5 years? And there's a big difference between the two. Now, that brings me to my question, is there a moment where you like in entrepreneurship, I've had different businesses, and the concept or the thought of, this is a struggle that I need to push through to move to the next level versus this is not effective anymore in this market. I need to cut it and move on to that next thing. How do you differentiate the two? When do you say, all right, this is time to pull the plug and I'm done with this, versus no, this is where I need to double down and get really into it?
I think every entrepreneur has a different strategy to evaluate their own business. One of the recommendations I would give is to detach yourself, separate yourself from your business a little bit, take small breaks, distance yourself, and look at a business. I call it sort of like a control tower. Sometimes entrepreneurs get so focused on one area of the business and they lose perspective of other departments within the company. You may be very good in the technical aspects, but you're not very good in the sales or the marketing or the administrative or human resources. So you tend to neglect other activities in your business, and the company starts suffering because every department is just as important and necessary for the development and the growth of a company. And a lot of entrepreneurs are not aware of the fact that, hey, having a good product is not enough. You need the service, you need the sales, you need the marketing, you need the administrator, you need all of those. Sometimes you need to separate yourself and evaluate the business as a whole and be open-minded to make the adjustments, to make the changes. I am accused quite often over the years of being kind of not negative, but pessimistic and focusing too much and spending too much time on going wrong, on the things that are not working, on everything that is not up to my standards. My answer is, I don't care. My job is not to focus on what's already working. Yes, I need to celebrate the victories. I need to pay attention to what's going well, applaud ourselves, build the confidence in the team. But I get paid to focus on what is not going so well and what needs improvement. It's not being pessimistic. It's not being negative. It's being realistic that if I want to perfect the process and improve my business, I have to pay attention to every corner that it's not going to my satisfaction or that I feel that can improve in so many different ways. And, removing that ego of always just celebrating your victories instead of just understanding that this is what some of the most successful entrepreneurs, they are their worst judge of character. They're the worst analysts within their company, because they're always looking for all the areas that are not up to their standards. And I like doing that. I mean, it's in my nature.
I said earlier that entrepreneurship can be very lonely, but some of the more successful entrepreneurs that I've spoken to have built teams, partnerships, people who come in and help because they're a 3 maybe as an accountant, so they hire a 10 accountant to help them come in. Maybe they're a 2 as a marketer, but they go out and find a partner that's a 10 in that marketing space. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, especially early on, you don't have the ability, the knowledge, or the network to even kind of build that team up front. And so you dive into this thing thinking, hey, I'm a really good plumber. I'm going to start my own business. And you get out there and you realize you have to wear all these hats. As you start learning, you start dealing with things like imposter syndrome and self-doubt. If you're an early entrepreneur, you're just getting started, and you find yourself feeling that self-doubt or that imposter syndrome as you learn to put on these different hats. What advice do you have for them to be able to overcome that or push past that self-doubt?
Yeah, this is a very interesting part about owning a business, that it requires more than one talent. When you embark on this journey of becoming your own boss and starting a company, like you said, even if it's a plumbing company, an air conditioning company, something that is what appears to be self-explanatory, it requires more than one area of expertise. And what I always recommend new entrepreneurs is to first understand, what does it take for this business that I'm getting into to become successful? What are the pieces of the puzzle that need to work in harmony in order for my business to flourish, to grow, and to expand? Number two, identify what parts of that puzzle do I personally possess? What are my strengths? And you have to be very honest about which ones are necessary that you're not particularly good at. That's perhaps the most important. I try to do that with my businesses and be honest with myself and understand some of my weaknesses. At that point, I begin to figure out who can help me with those particular areas. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to try to learn everything about the business, even some of the areas where I'm not very successful at, or where I don't enjoy that particular type of work. But you have to understand the fundamentals, but it doesn't mean that you have to spend too much time doing those things. And in our circle, normally, when you don't have the budgets to hire executives, to load up with employees, and have the level of pressure and payroll, I've been lucky enough where I've been able to partner with people and share a piece of the pie. That's my recommend. I've had great partners throughout the years where we complemented each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we share the business, the ownership of the business, but we also made it grow faster. So what may appear as, oh, I'm going to have to share a percentage of this business, actually, you may very well end up sharing a piece of a much bigger pie and perhaps make a lot more progress and make much more money by having the right partners than by attempting to do it all alone and not fully being able to manage it or even understand some areas.
And it's the mentorship is always helpful. And I like what you said, you don't wait for them. You listen to them, you learn from them. There are different people out there who've already achieved a level of success that maybe you want to aspire to. You can get their books, you can buy their courses, you can hit that fast forward button by hiring that mentor directly if you are capable of doing that, to just really shorten that learning curve. Jose, if people want to reach out to you, they want to find out more about what you do, how can they do that, and what are they going to find when they go there?
JoseBerlanga.com, Onyx Land Partners. I own several companies. I'm really in the process of modernizing, getting more involved in social media and trying to do some mentoring and trying to do a lot more speaking and talking to new entrepreneurs to help out. I think I have so many years of experience, so many bad experiences of this long road that I've traveled, that I can help others try to minimize some of the pain involved in starting and building a business. But ultimately, as you said, it's always going to be difficult, and we just have to know it up front and know whether this is something that we want. So this is part of the journey, understanding if you want to live this level of stress, this level of pressure, but also have the benefits that eventually come with this territory of being your own boss. So it's more of a long-term game, and we need to remove that desire of immediate gratification when you go into into this particular field. It's going to take some time, but it's worth it.
100%. I totally agree with you. And that's a part of the intro of our show, right? Entrepreneurship, it can give you everything you want in life, but it can also take everything away. And that's kind of the way the game is played. But if you have a dream, you have an ambition, you have a passion for it, you can definitely make it happen, especially if you bet on yourself. So ladies and gentlemen, make sure you guys stop by Jose's website. It's joseberlanga.com, joseberlanga.com, scrolling across the bottom right there. Reach out, find out what he's up to, what he can help you with. Again, anybody who's already done what you want to do is a great asset to have a conversation with. So Jose, thank you very much for being on the program. Any final thoughts before we head out?
No, absolutely. This has been great being here with you, and love to do it again. This is part of what you mentioned, the mentoring and the communicating and helping the new generation. I'm trying to do it through writing as well, because you nailed it. You cannot teach someone via just reading. You can learn all you want by reading and going through as many books, which are very important, but ultimately it's practice. Get out there, do things, fail, try again, get back on the horse, and eventually you start improving and becoming a better leader and a business, a better business operator. So just keep going is the message.
You said it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I get it. It's going to be tough. You're going to have questions. You're going to have self-doubt. It's fearful. But I guarantee you, if you just dedicate yourself, you take action, you go over every little obstacle that comes in your way, you're going to go far. And you're going to look back and thank that past version of yourself for the decisions you made today. So get out there and go do it. JoseBerlanga.com, ladies and gentlemen. Jose, thank you very much for being on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get